Let's start with the technical round, Shahista. You said you have experience in C Sharp. How much would you rate yourself based on your expertise out of 10? I would rate myself 7 out of 10. Okay. So let's start with the basic concept of C Sharp. So what is C Sharp? C Sharp is a programming language. It's an object-oriented programming language developed by Microsoft. There are certain object-oriented fundamentals based on which you can achieve real-time entities like inheritance, polymorphism, data hiding, and that way you can write your code. Okay. So you just mentioned the fundamentals of OOPS. Can you explain what are they? Yes, I can explain. So there are four basic pillars of OOPS: abstraction, encapsulation, polymorphism, and inheritance. Please explain the concept of abstraction. Yes. So abstraction is basically a process of hiding irrelevant information from the end user or implementation detail from the end user. So for example, let's assume I have a class which is performing some functionality. Then abstraction is basically hiding how that functionality is being achieved and also restricting few properties of that class to the same class and not exposing it outside that class so that nobody can interrupt its functionality. Okay. So hold on a second there. How would you explain the concept of abstraction in our example of car? In the example of car, if I have to explain abstraction, then it would be so for example the core unit of the car is engine, right? Because of the engine it performs all the operations. So now everyone sitting in the car or the person who is driving the car is not aware how the things are getting done whenever he start the car or stop it or increase the accelerator. So at that time he is not aware how behind the scene this is happening. So that is a kind of abstraction that car has provided, that you can do things but still you're not aware how these things are getting done. So that's the best example of abstraction in car. Okay, well said. What is encapsulation? Encapsulation is data binding and data hiding. So basically, when I say there are like we take an example of car, there are different properties of car, and at the same time there are different functionality of the car. So what we can do is we can encapsulate them into one class and have that everything inside that class. So it's called data encapsulation. And when we say data hiding is basically keeping the private variables and private method of that class into scoped to that class and not making them public to the rest of the world. So that is encapsulation. So why do you think this data hiding is important and how do we achieve it? Yes, the data hiding is very important. So for example, if we take the same example of car, if we keep the engine, which is a core unit of the car, public, then anybody will come and interfere with its functionality, the way it's performing the action, and that might give some unexpected result, right? Similarly, there are certain concepts like I mentioned before, abstraction and encapsulation. These can be achieved by data hiding. So there are certain access specifiers which can be used to provide the data hiding, and with the help of them you can achieve it. What is polymorphism? Polymorphism is the ability to perform more than one form. It's a mechanism by which you can distinguish between the entities with the same name. What do you actually mean by more than one form, and how do you achieve it? And what are the different ways to achieve it? Yeah, so ability to perform more than one form means a class having an ability to have multiple implementation for the same method. So for example, there is a method who is doing addition of 2 integers. You can also have a method which is doing the addition of 3 integers. So that ability to perform more than one form. So that is how you can have more than one implementation for the same method. And how do we achieve it? There are multiple ways. So there are two ways by which you can achieve it. One is static polymorphism. You can achieve it by method overloading, and there is another method overriding. That is called dynamic polymorphism. So these are the two ways by which you can achieve the polymorphism. I'm sharing a code snippet with you on screen. You have to tell me which one is the correct way of defining method overloading and why. Okay. The first one is okay, addition of two numbers. Then second one, addition of three number, which is a valid overload. Third one is having a double type of parameters, which is again a valid overload. The fourth one is the same as the third one, and it has a return type double. So that one is not a valid overload, because it's the return type doesn't matter. The number of parameter, type of parameter, and the sequence of the parameter matters when it comes to overloading. So this one is again not. So this one is not the valid overload. So fifth one, integer a, b, and ref c. Yeah, so this one is a valid overload because ref is a different type of parameter. It's not an integer, it's a reference type. So yeah, it will be a valid overload. And then we have a same with the out keyword. So ref and out both means the same here, type of parameters. So fifth one and fourth one are not valid overloads. Rest are correct. What is class and object in C#? Class is a blueprint of the object which are being created out of it, and object is basically a runtime entity of that class. So if, for example, if I say I have a class car and there are 100 of objects which are created, then my class actually tells me how all of my objects will looks like. So it's basically a blueprint of what the objects will look. What are different data types in C#? There are two different types of data types, value type and reference type. Here I am sharing a snippet with you on screen. You have to tell me what will be the output of this program and why. Okay. Result, see, integer, we are setting its value to a plus b in the sum. Okay. And then so here output would be sum is 0 because result is an integer type and its value in the main method is 0, and we are passing it to a method, and whenever we pass a value type to a method, then its new copy gets created, and whatever changes we do it on top of it in that new method, that happens on the new copy, and when we come back to the main method, it will definitely refer the old one. So here the output would be 0. Can you show me how memory allocation happens for these two different data types in C#? Yes, I can show. So if we see for the value type.
So let's start with the value type. Here is the RAM, and inside that we have memory allocation for, let's say there is an integer I, which is value is 100 in the beginning. And it will be stored in the memory location OX00 002243, and the value of I is 100 will be stored there. Now this this memory location, so this memory location will be referring to the integer. Now coming to the reference type, this one is the RAM, and there will be two memory allocation. One will be for the reference of the variable, which will save the actual address where we will be storing the value, and so it's basically a reference to the actual value. Now on this memory location there will be a value. So let's say hello world is the string, and string is a reference type. So string's value is, we have defined the string as hello world, and this value will be stored in the address that we just created. Now the first one is basically the memory allocation for the variable s, which will store the address of the actual value. So this one is basically the reference to the actual data in the memory. So this is how the reference type get allocated.
What is the data type of string? String is a reference type. Then why it is called immutable? String, in case of string, what happens is CLR behind the scene saves string into array of characters. So when the array of characters get created, array is a fixed size data structure. So whenever you change the string, CLR has to create a new copy of that array of characters and save it in the memory. So every time you do the changes on the string, a new copy gets created into the memory, and that's why it's called immutable. That's great. Very well explained. What are the different access specifiers in C# and explain their significance? There are different types of access specifier, public, private, protected and internal, and these access specifiers are used to achieve the encapsulation and abstraction concept that we discussed before, so that we can hide irrelevant information from the end user and also achieve the encapsulation by limiting the methods and properties to the class, and instead of exposing them outside the class. Okay. What are constructors in C#? Constructors are default methods of the class. So whenever we create the instance of that class using new keyword, this default method gets called every time, and these are very important to have for any class. So there are different purposes why you can have a constructor. For example, if you want to set some dependencies during the class initialization object creation, then you can have constructor. At the same time, if you want to set some properties during object creation, then also you can have a constructor. So yeah. So here is a code snippet that I'm sharing with you on screen. You have to tell me which one is the correct way of initializing a constructor. Okay. So first one, in class 1, there is a default constructor and parameterized constructor. So this one is valid because you can have parameterized constructor as well. In the second one, there is a private constructor and public parameterized constructor. So this is again a valid scenario where you can restrict your default constructor and have a parameterized constructor. And in the third one, it's again a private constructor. So it's a valid one. No, hold on a second. The third one is not correct because it's a static class, and static class can't have instance constructor. So third one is incorrect. You just mentioned you can have a private constructor. Can you tell me what is the need or what is the perfect scenario where one should go for a private constructor? Yeah. So by making a constructor private, you can achieve different functionalities. So for example, if you want certain certain values to be passed to a class whenever we initialize or create its object, at that time we can make a default constructor private and have a parameterized constructor. Also, in certain cases when you want to restrict the number of instances that you want to create out of that class for some design patterns, at that time you can have a private constructor, and you can expose a static method which will give the instance of that class. So for that purpose also we can make a constructor private. So what is the static class and why do we use it? So static class is a class which cannot be instantiated, and in order to access its properties and methods, you can directly refer the class name and you will get the access to the methods. When do we use static classes is basically when we don't have any dependencies on the objects which we are creating. Its functionality won't change. For example, there are certain settings related to database connection. For example, connection config class is there, and you have a connection string, server name, port name, all these things. Now these things won't vary based on how many object you created out of that class, right? So in that case, you can have static classes, and whenever you will refer to such classes, CLR will load these classes into memory only once, and whenever it will be requested by other classes, same instance will be shared across all the other objects. So it's just loaded into the memory once, and it cannot be instantiated. Okay, so here is a code snippet that I'm sharing with you on screen. You have to tell me which are the wrong scenarios for defining static class and why. So first one is has a instance constructor. So first one is invalid because static classes can have only static constructor. Second one has a static constructor, is the valid static class. Third one has a static constructor with public access specifier. So access specifier on the constructor is not allowed in static classes. So third one is invalid. Fourth one has two constructors. So again, parameterized constructor is not allowed in case of static classes. So fourth one is incorrect. Why can't static classes have instance member and instance variables? Like I mentioned before, static classes get loaded into the memory only once whenever they are referred for the first time, and their values doesn't affect based on how many objects you create. So having instance methods or instance variable doesn't make sense, and that's why they are not even permitted, and at the compile time only you will get an error whenever you define such kind of methods and properties. Can you tell me different ways to return multiple parameters from a method? Yeah, I can tell. To return